Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or afternoon, I guess. I'm not gonna lie. Normally I'd start off with some kind of spunk or something like that. I don't feel well. Didn't sleep well, don't feel good. Just gonna kind of teach you and get this done. Sound good? Even if not, guess who doesn't care? This guy, because that's what I'm doing. So usually I try to use the teacher's edition, but I've got a blank paper like you, so we're going to kind of do this together because this is a quick hitter lesson. Very easy, and again, easy is the wrong word. It's very basic, okay? Basic being the right word. So on Monday, we reviewed graphing, right? We graphed ordered pairs, x comma y. We know how to do those ordered pairs. Well, today, we are going to do proportional relationships in graph. So this is just graphing something to tell whether it's a proportional relationship. And this is, again, very, very easy because two things have to happen eventually for them to be a proportional relationship. On your warm-up, it asks you to find out, was it proportional? We know proportionality has to happen when y divided by x equals k. Okay? From there, all of our k's has to stay the same. One of the things that Engage New York does so well is they beat a dead horse. And they keep beating it and they keep beating it because every lesson that we've had has talked about that. I mean, you haven't had a break from y divided by x equals k. So this should be pretty ingrained in your head. So you did the warm-up. Let's go to the exploratory challenge. It's at the bottom of that first page that you have. It says, using the ratio provided, which we have 2 bars for $3 received. Create a table that shows money received is proportional to the number of candy bars sold. Plot the points in your table on the grid. So there's two things that I'm seeing here. One, my grid goes to 10 on my x-axis, 14 on my y-axis. So when I make my proportions, it should be small. The next thing is, it says, create something that shows money received is proportional to the candy bars sold. So we know to show proportional relationships here, all of the constants have to stay the same. Well, to do that, we multiply by the same number. So I'm going to multiply by 2, that gives me 4, that gives me 6. I'm going to multiply by 3, that gives me 6, that gives me 9. I'm going to multiply by 4, that gives me 8, that gives me 12. Okay? And I think that's as many spaces as you had. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. So now we're just going to graph. And the graph looks a little different than our coordinate plane because it's only in the first quadrant. So this point here, this is still my x, this is still my y, and this still is 0, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's 14. I'm going to count by 2s just so I can keep it simple for myself because I'm lazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, so now we're going to graph this. So we already have our first one. It is at 2 up 3. There's my first point. My next point is at 4 up 6. Okay, then 6 up 9. And last but not least, 8 up 12. Now, there's a couple things you need to know about my graph versus you guys doing this on graph paper. And hopefully at this point, you have some graph paper. If not, go borrow some. By borrow, go get some and then use it. So, candy bars sold to money received. When you're looking at this, what happens with our points? What does it appear is happening with our points? Well, again, my graph's a little bit awkward because it's not perfect. But for the most part, they appear to be on a straight line. Because you're going to learn as we keep going through that this is a linear equation. Y equals kx, if we have a constant, is a linear equation, meaning that it is on a straight line. Because the constant stays the same. The constant meaning the rise over run. the rise over the run, the rise over the run, that constant staying the same. So one of the things that we have to know, so graphs for proportional relationships. There are two important things that we have to know about this. The first one is when plotted, it must form a straight line. And this is why it's important that you have graph paper. Because again, I kind of just, I didn't have any rhyme or reason for how far apart they were. Graph paper is going to be precise. Again, in mathematics, we need to be precise. I'm sorry, don't feel good. Normally I'd be precise, didn't want to. What's the other thing that we actually learned already about this? What does the first point of a proportional relationship always have to be? Well, now we can start to see it, because when we graph this, where is that first point? Oh. Well, if I sold 0 candy bars, we know that there's no money received. So when we graph a proportional relationship, it must pass through, and the word we used on Monday was the origin. Right? Because this ordered pair of 0, 0 is my origin. Okay? So when we graph, there are two things that have to happen. It must form that straight line, and it must pass through the origin. No questions about it. It has to do those two things. Listen, I know this seems silly. This was your lesson. So here's what you need to do right now. Flip to the next page in your packet. There are two examples in there. Example 1 and example 2. I want you to graph them. Okay? Tell me, yes, they're proportional, no, they're not proportional, and why. Remember, so if you look, there's important notes, characteristics of graphs of proportional relationships on there. It's right there. Okay? So you are doing example 1, example 2. Make sure you do those, and when you are done, you are going to raise your hand, or I will let you know during class where the answers are. Check them. Do not move on if you're missing those. Ask for some help, because again, two things have to happen. When plotted, it must be a straight line. The second thing, it must pass through the origin. Plain and simple, no questions asked. Okay? So do example 1, plot it. Do example 2, plot it. See if it's a straight line, see if it passes through the origin. I know some of you are smart. I know some of you are like, I don't even need to graph it to know. I want you to graph it, because eventually we're going to take the table of values away, and you're only going to be having the points. So please start to get used to using those points. Once you're done and you've checked those, I'll let you know what your homework is. Good job.